I think the other speaker never showed up, so we'll go straight now to questions and answer. So let me check if there are questions on the board. There are none. I must excuse Motelo Isaac. He's no longer there to take some questions. He said he had another engagement and he's not there. But I'm sure, because some of these topics are connected in different ways. So should any question come up that is specifically for him, we'll see if there is another way it can be addressed. So please go ahead with your question or comments.
Okay, thank you very much to the speakers. So I have a question for Peter. When he was talking about relational autonomy, so I was thinking, is this not a matter of semantics? What is actually different from this relational autonomy from autonomy itself? Because autonomy is exercised within the community. So clarify clearly what is actually differentiates this relational autonomy from the other autonomy he mentioned, although he called it individual autonomy. So I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, if you look at the one of the emphasis that is coming from the ethics of care or the feminist philosophy on ethics is that that human beings are relational and that we are embedded in our culture and society, and that we come into the world through our families, and that creates some kind of relationship with both the family and the outside world, the society. And it is growing up within the family in relationship with your teachers and your friends and all that you actually develop your autonomy. And it's within that context that you also nurture and exercise your autonomy. Hence, the idea of a relational autonomy, which is different from the what we call the Western understanding of autonomy. Western in the sense that is not including the feminist or the ethics of care. In which case, you go to Kant. Kant says for you to act autonomously, you should not have any hindrances or any impact from within you or even from outside and all that. So you're not supposed to take into consideration as much consideration what what others think or what they suggest. And so you get this situation where if a child like 18 or 21 goes to the hospital with the mother and starts talking, then the doctor would have to ask the mother to go out, to leave the room and let them. And so you have this idea of autonomy and informed consent that is derived from it, that does not permit the influence of other people or impact from other people or consideration of other people as such. Does that help?
I think I will add a few things to your answer, and that is that just like Amara positioned the question, autonomy is from the beginning always relational. There's never a time autonomy is independent, because the ability to exercise autonomy is always based on the affirmation of the significant others. That means when a child is growing, for the child to be comfortable with his or her decisions, there is always an affirmation during development that comes with the significant others. And significant others include the parents, the community, especially within African context. So for a child to learn to say no, there is always within the psychological development of that child, the ability that this child has learned from the family, from the society to say no or to say yes. So autonomy is always from the beginning something relational. It has never been like you argued, Kant presented that. I think there are a lot of Western authors that have also criticized Kant's idea of autonomy. So autonomy is not independent. Autonomy is always relational, and that is very, very important. So thank you for your answer, and thank you for your question. So Kevin Nuriti, can you, your comment or your question?
Hello. All. I think you can all see me. So I'm Kevin. I've been with this meeting since it started yesterday, and it's a very enjoyable discussion. I'm from Kenya. So, I'm really interested in this aspect of transhumanism. And it's a good thing to hear there are so many people who share the same kind of agenda. So anyway, for me, it's comments. First, I have a few comments that I want to just put across that I have noticed from the entire discussion since yesterday. The first comment I think is mostly from Chima. Yeah, I heard that she's talking about transhumanism as a way of trying to perfect the human. I feel like while the discussions was on, it felt as if that's the drift of transhumanism, and I think it's not. Rather, it's an ongoing concern of improving the human condition. It has nothing to do with perfecting the human, because perfection, I think, is an aspect that can only be subjective, depending on the user. For you, it's perfect. For another one, it is not perfect. It's still room for improvement. So I think the human condition will always have room for improvement. And therefore, it's not a goal or striving for perfection, but a way of improving the human condition. All right. On another note, I've also had a lot of discussions about identity, self-identity. I am because we are, and so on and so forth with the Ubuntu thing. I feel like there should be another discussion about how each one of us perceives identity, because this aspect that because I've become a transhuman, maybe I've enhanced my biological nature, cybernetics, biological gene editing, whatever form it takes, who I am is also subject to discussion. And I feel like watering it down to Ubuntu, whereby it's only relational to the community, or rather it mainly involves the community. I think it's a very watered down version, because, as they say, I am whatever I am. Who we are as individuals is also kind of subjective to some degree, whereby how I define myself in society, my status, my association, my perception, or what I consider as the self. And I feel like it's something that needs to be discussed. I like the way Abdul brought about the aspect of the ship of Theseus. And I felt like it slipped the minds of many, whereby we talk about this ship that keeps on changing. And as it keeps changing, we come to this conclusion, or asking this question: is it the same ship? And it may not be made of the same material, but depending on the perspective you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the story of the ship, it's the same ship, because we're looking from the dimension of the design of the ship, behind the ship. And the story, I think, doesn't die. It keeps on persisting. And also that is, remember, I am Kevin, and I keep that in mind. Do I maintain the consistent framework of being myself? Or if I get amnesia or dementia or whatever, and I forget who I am, and the community keeps insisting because I am, because we are, and it tells me, oh, your name is Kevin, and you did this and you did that. Do I get identity because of them, or is it because my story persists and it has just been stored in different memory banks, whereby it's stored as a memory amongst the community? And each community member just has a different perception of who I am, a different slice of the memory of who I am, and they're able to remind me who I am. And therefore, relational-wise, I'm able to know who I am because these parts of these memories can be taken from each one and give me the perception of identity. And so I feel that aspect of identity needs to be discussed in further. All right, then I'll also talk about also a side note of a point of concern, whereby the aspect of extending human life and what it means to wealth and property, especially amongst this so-called same community. As you can see, the longer you live, the more you can accumulate wealth and property. So assuming you're working, of course, and, buying things here and there, and putting in the work at the hours. If I live to be 1,000 years old, I am sure I'll have significant amount of property if capitalism still persists. And now the question is, are there structures that are going to be created to solve this particular issue of wealth accumulation beyond what a community, any community holds? Like, you get to a point whereby you even own even that community's land and resources and everything, because you've kind of outlived those who are unable to afford or get in hold or become member of the transhumanist movement. So I think it's a point of concern that also needs a discussion on what would be the way forward on a world whereby other people choose transhumanism and those who don't, and what does that mean to property and wealth in terms of its accumulation. And lastly, an interesting white elephant I want to point out would be the fact that I've seen a Catholic priest discuss transhumanism. And also we have a sister, a very interesting white elephant, whereby I would have thought, maybe based on religious backgrounds, I've been a Catholic before, so whereby I know death is taken as a transition to the other life, the afterlife, where we are going to heaven and all these other things. So I would be very interested also to hear how they reconcile that aspect of religion, whereby arguing for living longer versus death, looking at death as a crossover to the other side of, the heaven or hell or purgatory, whichever side someone is going to, whereby if they're advocating for it, have they reconciled the two aspects of religion and transhumanism within themselves, if they're arguing for it in the papers that they have put forward? I think that is a very interesting white elephant that I would like to hear more about. Thank you. That's all my comments about this entire discussion.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You touched very, very sensitive points. That is, I really love your comments, but I am not a presenter at the moment, so I will give the platform to the presenters to respond to your question. I think that question will first go to Amara, and then I will want to hear what Peter will respond. And of course, Augustina, if you have a response to that, those his comments, and please make it brief. It's quite, how many comments there? About 6 comments, or rather, call it reactions that really need a response. Amara, please.
Okay, I think I noted 5. So I don't know the 6th one because my network was unsteady. So I will start with the first one, and I want to say thank you very much, Kelvin. this is really quite a challenging reactions. So the aspect you talked about, human condition, transhumanism, seeking to make human condition better, is true. But why I emphasize perfection in my talk and also in some of my essays is that in trying to improve the human condition, transhumanists seek to create posthumans. So if you read Nick Bostrom's Why I Want to Be a Posthuman When I Grow Up, you will find out there that he says that a posthuman is someone that has exceeded all human capacities in both in lifespan, he talked about emotions and rest of them. So now if a posthuman is someone that is far better than humans in all areas of interest, then what are we talking about if not to perfect human being to that stage where you will no longer be subject to death, to aging, and to disease? That is that. Then I love the fact that you also noted about the role of individual in the whole discourse of transhumanism, especially from the African perspective. And this boils down to some of the discussions that we had yesterday about the conflict between the individual and the community within the Afro-communitarian discourse. And the individual also plays a role, because without the individual, we won't be talking about the community. It's the individuals that constitute the community. And when you come to Menk, it is account of normative personhood, where I am coming from, you will see the role of the individual there, because it is you as an individual that has the right to strive towards personhood. So bringing it within the context of transhumanism, it is you as an individual that would decide whether to be morally enhanced or not, whether to carry on with the human enhancement ideals of transhumanism or not. Then you talked about the issue of identity. So I think within the context of transhumanism, the issue of identity might not be a problem, because we are talking about mind uploading. When you upload your memories, your personalities, and rest of them in a spark computer, and maybe you wake up one day and you no longer remember who you are, then the supercomputer could always remind you who you are. It's just that the problem here with your example of dementia is that you remember who you are today and forget it tomorrow. But with the existence of the supercomputer, where your memories and everything about you is being uploaded, you will always remember who you are. And that is what I could say within the transhumanist context, although that is quite debatable. Then the issue of property and wealth in within transhumanism. This is an issue I've not really considered about, but the little I could say is that this is very crucial, although this might not be a problem within the transhumanist future. Why is this so? Is that there's this assumption that when the transhumanism technologies or moral enhancement technologies become available, that everyone will have access to it. So if everyone could have access to it, maybe someone like Rakik will say that it should be a government-sponsored program where the government will provide it for free, so that individuals will not decide whether to take it up or not. So within this context, you find that whether you have the money or you don't have the money, you will have access to moral enhancement technologies. But aside from this, if you put it in another context, there might be a problem of, especially within the digital divide, between Africa and the rest of the world, which Fayemi hinted on when he was talking about his necropolitics. So this will, I think, will also remain a problem when you look at it from that aspect. Then the last one is about religion and the transhumanist quest for immortality. This is also interesting. I addressed this issue in a co-authored paper with Arabia. So the problem here is that while religion promises us life after death, transhumanism promises us life here on earth. So there are some Christian transhumanists like Ted Peters who believe that there is a that transhumanism does not pose a challenge to religion or even immortality because there is no way we would live here on earth forever. For example, going back to the mind uploading, we might upload our minds to the supercomputer and rest of them. What if that supercomputer gets attacked by a virus? So definitely you find that the religious immortality from the Christian perspective of going to heaven will always be an alternative for us. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara. Thank you for that response. I will still keep my comments. Peter, please, you do have something to say to Kevin's reaction.
I think my sister Amara has summarized the whole thing and spoken well to them. I'll just add something. First of all, the whole idea of transhumanism, maybe they should change the name because transhumanism, it means that you are already gone out of human. I mean, the distinction is there. You are in a different species altogether. And as Christy, as you said in the other section, I mean, if you upload your brain and all that in a supercomputer, we're no longer talking about humans, something else. And shall we talk about immortality and all that? I mean, the immortality of religion does not apply to that because the immortality of religion then is talking about humans who transform. And we still have that debate about when you transform to that immortality, when you are dead, are you still a human or are you angels and spirits and all that? Those kind of things. I mean, that's my thought on that. And then his other comments about I am because we are, and since we are, I am. Depicting, I mean, that depicts relationships and all that. The individual is not lost in that because remember, then we define the individual or the person in reference to the self, reference to the creative spirit, the personal creative spirit, and then the community. So you have those three perspectives that come to, those three notions that come to it. So people tend to speak loudly about the communal aspect, and oftentimes it is to counteract the individualistic style of the Western culture and all that. So it is there in the African worldview that persons are defined in at least from three perspectives. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Is Augustina there? Okay, Augustina, please you have a response to the reaction or what the comments that the other speakers made?
Yes, I just have a personal comment to make in respect of this conference. Actually, I saw the flyer late and I tried to. But from the literary perspective, as someone in the literature of French literature, I've come to learn a lot from this very conference, and I'm glad I'm part of it. It has been mind-blowing, and from what the last person have said, the speaker that was asking about different things on religion and all that, he has made a point also. After a conference like this, I think the next thing is it should always open our eyes to further research, to find out more other things that we ought to know. So I think from here we could go and actually have more deep provoking thoughts and make more researches on this transhumanism and biotechnology concerning everything that goes on. So because all we are talking about is the human well-being, how we can live with less problems. So I appreciate the organizers. You have done well, and then thank you also for accepting my abstract. Actually, as at that point, I didn't know how to go about some of these things, but with what I have learned so far, I think I have a lot to also go into and study more. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Augustina, for thanking the organizers of the conference. So first, I'll begin where I was directed, where I was involved, the question of if there is transhumanism, what about life and death? And I cannot say more than Amara just said, because, or the other speaker also emphasized. You remember that it's a computer system and system collapses. So even if we can analogously think that human being is a system that collapses in the form of death. So we can what happens after death is a matter of faith. Okay, it's a matter of faith. So it's not just Christian religion, Buddhist religion, although theirs is about reincarnation. Until you're able to perfect your life, then you will not be able to reincarnate again, but you keep reincarnating so long as you have something to repair. So Islamic religion has the same. So most religions of the world had something to talk about after death. Personally, I have never died. It is just a matter of faith that there is somewhere. But you also need to understand that heaven is not a location. Heaven is a state. Okay, so some theologians say that heaven is a state. So, and I use it in my interreligious lectures. If it is a state, that means that state is a state you are, that you've lived a good life, you've done everything good, and now your soul is somewhere at peace. Your soul can now, have a fullness of existence without constrictions. So taking it at that, so even if you believe in transhumanism, for the fact that this transhumanism can never stop death, there must be a collapse, even if it's just a virus. So somebody can develop antivirus to treat it tomorrow. But at the same time, you always realize that even computers have expiry dates. Machines have expiry dates. So whatever we develop as technology, believe me, they always have expiry dates. So that human beings die, just let's take it as expiry dates. So, and when human beings expires, they disappear, So what happens later is left for those who have gone there to tell us exactly how it is in that place. But my faith teaches me that transition to that state of existence is what happens when existence expires. If I would use the word expiring rather than death. Second is that I am not an advocate of transhumanism. Actually, not because of what it will offer, but because of what it is offering, we cannot measure the consequences of what it will offer. In life, we take risk, but there are risks you can't measure. And that is what Coquelbert described as some risk that's associated with technological developments, because we are not aware of them, we can't measure them, we can't predict them. And because we cannot predict them, that is even why it is even more dangerous. To what you said about identity, collective identity, and individual identity. Let me, Amara mentioned something about when enhancement is democratized and everybody have access to it. I thought immediately about vaccination during the COVID, where many people had their conspiracy theory about vaccination and refused to be vaccinated, take the vaccination. And many who didn't take it, they lived their normal lives. Those who took it, many of them ended up having complications. Some took it without complications. So we realized that even with that enhancement, have we ever considered that the bodily composition of an individual might be reactive in a way to the enhancement processes, unless where the enhancement processes are conditioned within the composition of a particular body. And that brings me to the fact that we think always about this abstract way of enhancement. A human being is not only this cognitive mind, where we can now lift the memory and store it somewhere. What about the body? The body, which is an embodiment of the person. So if I see Amara, I know that this is Amara, even if I don't have access to her memory, but I know it's Amara. So the moment she becomes something like an oceanic person, or when she starts seeing like a Caucasian, or when she appears to me like a tree, I mean, and somebody tells me, oh, this tree is Amara. How am I supposed to believe that? Like some of the fictions that we watch, where a human being becomes a dog, transformed to become a dog, and the dog is looking at the mother. Mama, it's me. Mama, it's me. And the woman kicks the dog and says, how can my daughter be a dog? There is a memory in that dog that says that his name, the name of the dog is Njideka. But the mother who is seeing her. So identity goes two ways. How I identify myself and how the society identifies me. So it means that we cannot isolate both two, particularly in the example that you gave, which Amara also responded very well in the terms of dementia. Somebody who is dement, but I will take it even further. Somebody had an accident and had amnesia and lost the memory. And the doctor said, please take her to the places that he used to be. Take her, show her pictures. So, and the family now brings a picture. Oh, this is where you and your husband, think of me marrying, and I forgot my husband. I can't even recognize the face of my husband, but he has a picture, and he's showing me this picture, saying to me, I am your husband until my memory recovers. So you now see that we cannot exist independent. There is nothing like an individual identity. There is an individual identity, of course, but these always exist in relation. It is always identity in the midst of. It is always identity in the presence of. It is all identity in the society. And finally, the question of, memory, I have already answered that. The question of transhumanism. Of course, I will also support what Amara said about the whole objective. It is not only about what it is defined. It is not how I understand it. It is the goal of transhumanism. The goal of transhumanism is to make humans better. You said that. Why is that making better? Why do we need to extend the life of humans? Why do we want to eliminate death? Why do we want to eliminate all our vulnerabilities? Why do we don't want to be sick? Why do we don't want to make mistake in judgments? Why do we just want to wipe away everything that makes us faulty? Is it not a pursuit of perfection? It is a pursuit, even if today it is not perfect, and tomorrow we keep seeking it. So the project, the whole project of transhumanism is a goal of perfectionism, to make human existence perfect, which is for me unrealistic. It is never and will never be actualized, because even that machine is going to be faulty at some point. even that enhancement is going to be devastating and disastrous at some point, even if it is not going to make a human being collapse. That would be my response to that. And Kevin, you're also raising your hand again. Okay, you ask the question. But before you comment, Andrew, please go. Kevin, you will respond because it is your reaction that we are responding to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Good afternoon to you, and I really appreciate for the wonderful presentation. Andrew, I'm a student here at Alupe Jesuit University in Zimbabwe. I have a few questions that I want to learn more from you people, and I would like you to put more light on the following questions. Do we really have African scholars who have gone deep to write about what is meant by transhumanism in Africa? Do we have that reality in Africa? Could you be having any kind of transhumanism concepts in Africa? Do we have people who have been enhancing their bodies in Africa? I would love to talk about the female genital mutilation in Kenya and Uganda, and then the male circumcision. There are local tribes in Africa that are doing that. Why are they doing that? Why do we do female genital mutilation? Why do we go for circumcision? Why do we go for that? And then also, it's new in Africa. Is it a new concept? Oh, we've been having it in Africa, but in our way, in African way, like what Madam, one of the professor talked about it. Don't we have our African way of doing transhumanism? That's all I have. And then also, do we need it in Africa? That's a question also. Oh, we don't need it. And if you don't need it, why don't we need it? Thank you so much.
Okay, so before we respond to that, I want to tell you, yes, we have scholars in transhumanism, and one of them, many of them are here. Abdul is here, Fayemi is not here, but Amara Chimakonam has published extensively in transhumanism, and it is her research area. So we really have people who are scholars, African scholars in transhumanism, and because they are here, they might also need to respond to your reaction. Before I call them, I also want to make a comment on what you call FGM. So I wouldn't call it FGM. I will also call it female circumcision, because FGM is borrowing from the colonial baptism of that. Because even if you come to the West, there are also women who go to operate on their private parts to shape it differently and all that. So if you call it female mutilation, what will you call what these other people are doing? So the calling it mutilation is borrowing the words or the concept of, or the humiliation of the hegemonial group of people that want to use it to, think of these practices as something barbaric. My position doesn't mean that I accept it, but I want you to place it within its context. So you use circumcision for males and mutilation for women, for females, which I find not acceptable. That is from the beginning discriminatory. Both of them are circumcision. Whatever that is done there is a mutilation of the nature of that particular sexual organ. But this circumcision, like we talked about at the beginning of this program about culture, you understand? So it can be changed. But when you look at it and compare it to the ontological, the very foundation, not organ, not the changing of organ, because if you talk about that, you think of heart transplants, you think of liver transplants, you think of, even there are human beings that don't have hearts now. They have machines. And that is what technology has brought, so that you can prolong some people's life and make them live healthy. I don't context that. But we are looking at where you see a healthy individual, a healthy human being, and you think because it's a human being that something is lacking in this person. Moral judgment is lacking. And this person cannot make right choices because the person is whatever, okay? And in that case, when you think of the relationship between the rest of the world and Africa, where they would think the people who will really need enhancement will be Africans because they are dummies, all right? So, and that is where our question is focusing, whether what will be, and you cannot say we don't need it. We don't have to need it. The fact it is there, and it is pushing. I mean, in the 54 countries of African continents with over 100 million people, you can't say who wouldn't need it and who would not need it. The fact that it is like a market, and probably many people will be consuming it. So that is why we are focusing. How can we generate an African ethical framework that can be injected in the system to make it resistant when it pushes so hard towards our existence? And that is why it is very important. So with that, Amara, maybe you want to respond. Andrew, I don't know whether what I said made any sense, but maybe Amara and Abdul, who are experts in transhumanism, will be able to comment.
Yes, Chrissy, thank you for your comments. They really made sense. I love the fact that you corrected this issue of female genital mutilation. I also have been having problem with it. And it reminds me of this proverb in Igbo language that says, when you want to kill a dog, what you just need to do is to call it a bad name. So they created this narrative of genital mutilation to actually paint female circumcision in a very bad way without considering the context in which this is being practiced. And I often wonder if female circumcision is mutilation, what will we call what is really happening now when you talk about sex change, where a female will go and change her sex to that of male, and where a male will change his sex to that of female? Is that not mutilation? So let me not digress on that. There are so many scholars working on transhumanism within the continent. Doreen Cicero from Botswana, Abdul, as she mentioned, and Faimi and myself, and there are others out there too. There's also an edited collection on transhumanism in Africa. It will be coming out middle of next year by Springer. So there you also find collection of essays on transhumanism in Africa. And on the question of whether we need transhumanism in Africa, is an interesting question. But the issue, as Christy pointed out, is not whether we need it or not. The question is that we need to be prepared, and we need to start having critical discussions on it. It might be possible. It might not be possible. But nobody is certain whether transhumanist future would be possible or not. But the only thing that we could say to be certain about is to be prepared. Take, for example, when they were talking about artificial intelligence back in the days, people were like, don't talk about it. And today we have technologies, we have artificial intelligent technologies. And it shows that now that transhumanism is being talked about, going by someone like Nick Land's, what he called the hyperstition. He says hyperstition is just the idea that predictions by their own very existence bring themselves into reality. What if that happens with transhumanism and Africa is not ready. What if that happens with transhumanism and we said, okay, because we feel like we don't need it now and it will not solve our pressing issues in Africa, as someone like Isaiah Nigedu has argued, we don't need it, we don't need to talk about it. And transhumanism happens, what will be our fate? So it is time at this his most speculative stage for us to start talking about it, having critical engagement like what we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara. Okay, user or something. User, please. Kevin, I will come back to you immediately, okay? User, please. User, you're raising your hand.
Hello.
Hello, yeah, we are listening.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sister Christy.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Tell us your name, full name, please. User may be user of something.
Thank you very much, Sister. I'm Christopher Bawade.
Okay, thank you, Christopher.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm enjoying this show, but I have some two questions, having followed through emphatically. First, my question goes to you first. When you were trying to answer Andrew Seligo question, you made mention of culture now determine our life nowadays based on this. You're talking about the female genital mutilation and that kind of our circumcision regarding to guys and men, whatever that we call them. Now, my question is, can culture determine our life now and our living societies? How long can this culture continue to determine our living? And what is the long-term cost in the era in which we are now? If we continue to live in that kind of culture life, this means that in 20 years to come, culture will always continue to be updating, trying to bring new ideas as long as we are human. So how long can this be? And what is the long-term cost? This is my first question. Then the second question goes to Prof. Oji Peter. When he was presenting, he made mention of some three-dimensional personhood, and I want to ask a question based on that. Can a personhood being defined in two-dimensional way and can be accepted in our society, since personhood is based on social, philosophical, and legal perspective? But is it a way, can we, based on personhood in these two dimensions, and can still be defined as a personhood in our society in which we are? Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, so let me just react. Then I will call on Osuji Peter to respond before the others will now react to that. I try to explain what culture is. I mean, we work on this whole definition, Western definition of culture as a way of people. And remember the cost of in the cost of events, there is this culture written with big C, and there is this culture written with C. So, and when you look at these two ways of writing culture and culture within the colonial relationship, you realize that the big culture had to do with cultivation, and that the Europe tried to use to define themselves. When you say that somebody is cultured, all right, somebody is cultured, somebody is trained, somebody is refined. So you say that this person is a cultured person. So that is where they use the big C to represent the Western understanding of themselves as people that are cultured. Then the other culture that is written with small c, it concerns the Africans in the context of his colonial history, where they said they met barbaric cultures, all right, where culture here is defined as practices. All right. So the point is that we have to be wary when we use the word culture. But generally, Culture, in this sense, has been understood as a way of life of a people. A way of a life of a people is not ontological. It is developed. It is learned. So in that way, whatever, when I teach intercultural studies, how do you confront other people's culture? You confront it with first openness and question. If somebody asks, for example, female circumcision, male circumcision, why do you people practice female circumcision and male circumcision? And Christopher, what will be your answer? Your answer, maybe you've not even thought about it. You will be forced to go inside yourself. Oh, come on, why do people do that? So your question of whether the culture will continue will depend on how much people are ready to question their practices. I would rather use the word practices rather than culture. So how willing and ready and open are people to question their practices? So questioning it is not at the same time as discriminating against it. Questioning it is not like prejudice towards it, but questioning it is like, does it help? What was the goal? How did it come about? Do we still need it? Okay, if the reason why it was practiced in the first place is no longer there, then one can say, okay, we don't need it anymore. All right. So, and that is what they call a kind of making advancement in society, making advancement in practices. So it's not a question of whether the invention of technology is conflicting with it. It's not conflicting with it because technology is part of that. So if technology is not helping, we have to confront it, just like we will confront circumcision. When we think that circumcision is not bringing anything and it has no consequence in what the society is, or is harming us as a practice. So everything here is about questioning, it's about interrogating, it's about confronting whatever. It's just like religion. You confront your belief. You ask yourself, why do I believe? Does my belief even matter in the first place? Ability to engage with it is what, for me, counts as human progress, rather than this whole development that many are not even participating. Many have not taken time to ask questions about the kind of development that are being involved in. So culture is not something that is permanent. Yeah, it is about practices that can change. Even when it changes, it doesn't change the ontological part of the group that makes that practice. I will stop there. So Peter, please respond, and then I will come to Kelvin, please. His hand has been up for a while.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I mean, I'm not too sure is that what he's asking for. But anyway, I was trying to present the idea that personhood, as Gekia and others will argue, that personhood is what we come to through our relationship with the community, with others in the community, how we have lived our life, helping others, or helping to improve the humanity of others, doing good and being virtuous, that we come to the personhood in a way. So that's what I was trying to explain, and then to say that since it is relational from an African perspective, then we should consider that in our evaluation of bioenhancement. So that's what I was trying to explain. And if I may add, I'm really glad that the response to the transhumanism and also the female genital mutilation idea of that, yeah, I think it is all political. So, and politics drives it, and also the business behind it. If you call it female genital mutilation, as Amara said, you're already giving the name, a bad name to the issue, and so it's killed. And we don't even have to go far as to talk about the sex change and all that. Why is female circumcision? Why is it more interesting than the male circumcision? what's the whole, what makes it important and all that? Some people have adduced the idea that because certain ethnic groups or certain racial group are indulged in male circumcision and they are very powerful, so you cannot critique them. So you go to the side you can critique and that are less powerful and all that. So it's the whole politics behind it. I have a question about the bioenhancement, whether we need it, and in this case, Christy, you answered very well. We have to interrogate. We have to be ready, at least, to offer the ethical principles that. And I was having a conversation with one of our students here on Sunday, and he's from Nigeria, like me, and he said something about why is the killings in Benue area happening, and we know Benue is the food area for Nigeria. And he says, what is not being said is that it is the modified food, the genetically modified crops and all that they have been trying to introduce it into Nigeria. It's not working. So now they want to destroy the food producing area so that then you will have famine, you have food shortage, and you bring this as an answer to this. We're not even given the opportunity to discuss it at all on that, but their business is planning ahead of ethics and bringing it in. So my question is this, I mean, what this guy said, is there an element of truth in it? And if there is, what are we as a body, at least from the academic side of it, what can we do?
I will leave that to the last part when we're about to go. Maybe aware of opening up other things that needs to be done. But Kevin has been, your hand has been up, and we really need to round up in a few minutes. So Kevin, please.
Hi again. Yes, I hear. I'm just responding to some of the reactions that I got from all of you about the 4 or 5 things that I pointed out, what I felt were points of concern and issues. I'm now just reacting back to what I've heard, and I want to react. Okay, so here goes. So the first reaction I want to make is about transhumanism cannot be measured. Yes, I heard that from you, Christy. A very interesting aspect, which is why you're not a transhumanist, because transhumanism can't be measured in terms of the consequences it infers, which I do feel like that is almost everything about humanity in a nutshell. Because if you ask me, look at, for example, let's say we were to help a certain baby with food. Okay, the baby was starving, want to give it. We don't know if this baby is going to be a thief tomorrow. We don't know if he's going to be Hitler if we allow that baby to live. We always get children, but that doesn't mean that we know what these children will become tomorrow. Some might become Hitler, some might become the next president of United States, who knows? So I don't feel like that is an argument as to why to reject transhumanism in its sense, because no particular thing can be measured in terms of consequences, everything we do. Life by design, I feel, is uncertain, meaning that we are speculative at best. Despite the best science, you can never say 100% we know what is coming in the next thing that we want to partake, be it a project. We don't know the consequences fully. So I don't feel like it's a reason as to why not to partake into it. Religion itself, also, we don't know the consequences of the afterlife. So we still partake in it, but as faith. So we don't know what's happening on the other side, but we take it by faith that it's going to be all right or good, or burning fire, whichever. It's not an exact science. It's also by faith. I think transhumanism still, we can debate all we want, but at the end of the day, there's nothing in life we can fully partake in terms of, say, the consequences of this. On that same breath, I feel like all aspects of humans are actually transhumanist in nature. Let me give an example. Why do we eat? So that we can live to see tomorrow. Why do we make new medicine? So that we don't die. Basically, everything we do, if you look at humans, is just a way of prolonging or shortening the aspect of death, one way or another, be it food, be it clothing. Why do we wear clothes? So that we don't feel cold, so that we don't get sick, so that we don't die. So the aspect of community as well. Why do we form communities? As you had said, communities are brought together because of vulnerabilities. So you accept and realize, oh, there are things I can't do, for example, and this my next neighbor thinks there are things they also can't do by themselves. So we come together with mutual interests of values and things, and we say, okay, you do this, I do that, so that we live longer as a society. So by default, I think transhumanism is something we have always been doing. We've always been delaying the inevitable aspect of death, one way or another. Even communities are just there for that sole purpose. We invent school so that you can know which plant you can eat and which plant you can't eat, so that you don't die. So I feel like everything we do as humans has always been to mitigate the aspect of death, or at least reduce it in some impact or in some way, from agreements to political associations. And I feel like we're just being scared that someone is calling it transhumanism and is saying, let's just embrace it fully now that we've all agreed we don't want to die today. Even those who I feel like transhumanism is all there is that humans have been doing or partaking. And that brings me now to my third reaction, which is this aspect of identity. Philosophically speaking, I feel this topic of identity is of bringing in community and all this aspect of self-identity is all ingrained into two concepts, basically: a story and memory. Okay, we're calling it relational and all these other terms, but what is a relationship? A relationship is whereby you kind of pick a point and you reference another point from that point, and you say this thing is at this point in relation to this other point. Okay, so as Albert Einstein said, everything is relational. From speed. You cannot be moving fast unless something else is stationary, so that you can say, oh, in relation to that other thing, this thing is moving fast. So for a relation to exist, or rather for a relational point to exist, one or more than two items must be in existence, okay? So that you can refer one to the other, all right? And that brings me to that aspect whereby then if a community is all relational and we want to measure wealth in terms of relationships, we are saying that you are placing one person in the community in relation to the other. And if you look at that properly, that creates something we call a chain of stories, whereby you have a story about a particular thing and another thing, and then you bring them together and you show how those stories are interconnected. For me, that looks like what the self is all about. The self is just a story we tell ourselves in reference to another. You know, I'm a father to John or Peter or whoever, because in relation to John and Peter, I was able to, you know, father or sire them because of their mother, which is another story which you relate to yourself. And you say, oh, and that guy over there is your cousin, because there's a story that points out that vector in terms of how that uncle, nephew, niece relates to you. So identity is just a story embedded with memory, right? If you're able to remember the story about this particular thing and how it's related to this other particular thing, then you already have relationship. That's, I think, for me, what makes AI very powerful, because if you look at artificial intelligence, most of them being GPT models, what they're just doing is they're able to understand the story of words. All right, this word means that, and this word means that. So I can put these words together and they can make this relationship that means a sentence or an entire paragraph or entire story. And the more memory it's able to contextualize, the smarter it gets, the better it gets. So I can say that this aspect of transhumanism is just enhancing the human story. It's about how our story goes on beyond life, you know, beyond us as the current species. Like, yeah, we started as Homo habilis, Homo erectus, whatever it is we started. And our story now is continuing. Oh, we ended up being cybernetic organisms, or cryogenically preserved humans, or genetically modified humans. It's just part of the story of being human. And that story is transcending the current form that we currently hold. And for me, that's basically the essence of transhumanism. I feel like it's something we have missed out in terms of arguing it from that perspective of story with memory. And I rest my case on my reaction on those takes. Thank you.
Okay, so your position is provocative. I can understand that, but I want to a little bit be argumentum ad hominem. Okay, so you because you are using the word to relate in place of relationship, where two people are mutual, they are mutual in each other's lives. Okay, and you are looking at it like something that is static somewhere and it's relatable. So, I mean, it is a kind of a linguistic problem that doesn't maybe currently belong in our argument here. So, but let me be a little bit of argumentum ad hominem. Now you are watching a drama, okay? And there is a character in this drama that is very much like Kevin, you know, and you are somebody who is been using this AI. Remember, it's not the whole argument is not a rejection of AI. The whole argument is at what point, okay, must we deal with it? So now you now told one of the AI instruments, and I said, please go to the internet, search everything about Kevin, and tell me a story about Kevin. In fact, I did an experiment. Okay, I did an experiment, and there were many people that answered the same name, the same group of names that I entered. All right, from first name to the last name, there were at least a minimum of 3 people. And the artificial intelligence brought those 3 names and started writing about them. But unfortunately, he messed up where they were born. All right. So what am I trying to say? That when you say that it is about story, but it can tell false stories. It can actually tell a story that doesn't belong. It can tell a story that is not you as Kevin. All right? So that is one. Ontologically, we are not just stories. If you say we are stories, then you as a human being here that I'm seeing that is bodily present, you don't have to be there. We need just to make a story and somebody will begin to exist. And I'm not saying that story is not part of it, but it is not reducible to stories. Our lives as human beings are not reducible to stories. So saying that it is about stories that these artificial intelligences can develop and make us to relate with it is, for me, is reducing the human person. And again, you said when we wake up tomorrow morning. So as you woke up this morning, you become a trans Kevin. Okay? So of course, somebody who saw you yesterday might as well see you today and say, this is the Kevin I saw yesterday. Maybe you alone will know whatever that changed in you. Maybe when you woke up in the morning, one of your eyes decided not to open, but the person will now say that you have transited to become a human with one eye. Okay, a post-human of today, that is 2nd of October. All right. So I mean, we are making these things to look so banal. You know, things about this artificial intelligence or transhumanism or post-humanism is not trivial. It's not banal. It's not just about waking in the morning and eating just to exist today. It is more than that. So reducing it to just that we are transhuman every day, like we eat and we wake up, we go to hospital and we are treated. Or when somebody goes to hospital and is given a machine in the heart, the person becomes a transhuman. That is for me, major proponents of transhumanism, we completely disagree with you. And I don't think I'll make any other comments after here. Amara, please give us a closing remark, please. And
okay. Before I do that, I want to quickly comment on Kelvin's point, especially when he talked about life is about transhumanism. I think what you're overlooking in your comments is the certainty that transhumanists place on enhancement technologies. And if you could remember during my talk when I was responding to Fireme's criticisms, I made mention of of these enhancement technologies, and this is seriously would be very problematic, because if you cannot really comprehend the full outcome of it, why are you so certain that this enhancement technology will make us live longer, will make us live better, will make us live in a morally virtuous way? And that is the issue here. Are we that certain, so certain of enhancement technologies that we now want to make such decision to start enhancing ourselves? Then another issue is that your take on, life being part of transhumanism has also made some proponent of transhumanism and strong transhumanism. You will find that in Stephen Sona's book he published in 2022 titled Why We Have Always Been Cyborgs. I can't remember the writer. So there, with transhumanism, they envision us being transhumans in the sense of us using technologies to enhance our being within that limit, that when you see me tomorrow, you know that this is a better Amara. And the strong transhumanism is trying to create another species altogether, so that a human Amara will no longer, if when you look at it, be a posthuman Amara, because a posthuman Amara is now much more better in all areas than a human Amara. And let's leave it at that. This is something that we will keep on debating. We might not end the conference today. So on these notes, I would want to say thank you on behalf of the Conversational School of Philosophy and the Transhumanist Africa. I want to say thank you to all our speakers, both for yesterday and today. And thank you to all our participants for their critical engagements and for staying with us throughout the 2 days of this program. Kindly note that a publication will be coming out of this conference. Please, if you are interested in contributing an article to it, kindly send an email to amaraesther35@gmail.com